And welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. Got a lot of stuff planned for you today, including we're just going to jump right off quickly here with Shane Beamer, the game. What the Gamecocks wanted. So, as Shane Beamer said there just a minute ago, and it's interesting that is the way that it came out. So, I don't know if my sound clip was working correctly. We'll run these comments again from Shane Beamer as he talked about the quarterback situation at South Carolina. Here we go.
Curious about the quarterback competition. Just I know it's limited reps right now and limited sample size, but how has that gone so far through 3 practices?
It's good, and you're right. It is limited, and watching everything, evaluating everything, one-on-ones with the receivers and defensive backs, and 7-on-7, and all the team periods that we do, and did a little 2-minute situation in practice today as well. So trying to evaluate everything, and all those guys are doing a great job right now. It's still, their heads are swimming because we're installing a new offense, and they're thinking a lot and trying to learn, but they've all flashed, and all 4 of those guys are doing a good job, and excited to see how they continue to progress along with all the other positions over these remaining 12 practices.
And how has Jason handled the transition from coming in from I think it's an FCS school and then trying to get caught up?
He's been good. Yeah, it's important to him. I mean, he's up here All the time. It seems like I see him in the meeting rooms, just working and studying on his own. And I think he's done a nice job of getting in there and learning. And he and EJ have pushed each other and coming in here together. They're extremely close and working with each other and pushing each other. And he's done a good job. I think the biggest thing with him is the fact that they, didn't have a season last season, and then their season this spring at St. Francis was they're not going to play. So the biggest thing with him was just getting in shape. Physically and attacking the weight room after being off kind of for that long. It's probably more of a physical adjustment for him, but he's in there working to try and get everything up to speed mentally and working to get better as a quarterback each and every day.
All right, there you go. So I think I fixed my sound issues now. Anyway, the big thing with that is that he's right about Brown, the St. Francis transfer. He passed for over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in his last season playing. But he's had kind of an extended time off. How's that going to affect him getting back onto the football field? And the other thing, too, he mentioned EJ Jenkins, who, a caller called me the other day and was talking about who I thought was going to be, I don't know if it was impact players or the player that could make the biggest difference this year. And I said to carry on Joyner, but the more and more you look with EJ Jenkins, he could be that guy if Brown can come back and overtake the job from Luke Doty, because then he could have that opportunity to have that chemistry that they had up at St. Francis where they put some magic together. So that's an interesting thing there too on that front. And, and with Jenkins, he has to be able to play with whatever quarterback they throw out there. To be completely honest with you, but he obviously has a bit of a rapport with, of course, Shane Beamer. Some of the other guys in the mix, of course, Colton Gauthier. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. If his mom calls and yells at me, I'm sorry. And Connor Jordan. I don't know how much those guys are going to be in the mix, but you never know until the season kind of shakes up a little bit and you can see how things are going. But some comments there from Coach Shane Beamer. And, we haven't really, have we really talked about, is it really Doty's job to lose? Did Luke Doty, if you're a Gamecock fan, did he really put enough out there last season for you to say, you know what? They clap my hands and that's the guy I want running the Gamecock offense? Or are you in the mix of, hey, maybe we should go with someone else? Now they did play at a much lower level school in the FCS level with St. Francis, but guys transfer in and out all the time. Things happen. So we'll take calls on the quarterback situation in South Carolina at 803-978-1832. With Shane Beamer coming in, it's almost like, I'm not saying this year should be just a throwaway type year, because I think everyone wants to have, a decent season every year. But I think this is the year that Shane Beamer has to build those blocks, and you have to make the right decision at quarterback. If you're going to go with Doty, then that's going to be the guy that you're hoping is going to be the guy next year as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But there's a part of me that when you watch Jason Brown and you watch his highlights, I know it's at a much lower level, but the guy's a big guy. And he looks like the kind of guy that could take a hit. It's going to stand in the pocket and not get popped. And that's kind of what maybe I'm old school in my thinking, but I kind of like that. I like the guy that stands tall in the pocket and is able to look down the field and throw some darts. I know that they've moved to a point now where everything has to be somewhat mobile, but in the grand scheme of things, look who won the Super Bowl last year. Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl, and what's he got with that? He's not the most mobile guy in the world. So there's that too. We'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Already some comments over there on this. Beamer says QB, what's that? Beamer ball doesn't have anything to do with the QB. Thanks to RMF Tide for that. What's up to John watching over there? Blake says 2 more women came out about Deshaun Watson. Total is now 16 women. He thinks Dabo needs to distance himself at this point. I'm certain Dabo wouldn't want to be called as a character witness at a trial like that. It would be a bad look for Clemson University. And he was talking about, you can't compare it to Michael Vick fighting dogs to what Watson did. Watson is going to prison for a much longer time. Well, sir, I can, because Watson hasn't been charged in a criminal court. So until Watson is charged in a criminal court, these are all cases of civil suits. Watson may lose a lot of money, but as of right now, Deshaun Watson has not been criminally charged. It's going to hurt his pocketbook a lot. But as far as going to jail, I mean, from everything that I've read, now, if I've missed something, please let me know. Absolutely let me know. And let's make sure that we understand this too. I mean, and I've talked about this for a while now, but I still need to bring this up because I don't think a lot of people get this. If Deshaun Watson did these things, that's not good. I do think we all live in a society where people can be forgiving, and I get that. But the aura of Deshaun Watson, if this isn't coming out if it doesn't come out where this is completely true or false, the aura of Deshaun Watson is gone. The guy on the Wheaties box, the guy giving shoes to kids, all of that is gone. Unless someone comes out with it point blank and all of it's just completely blown out of the water. This is all the nice shiny image of Deshaun Watson is gone. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Michael Vick, by the way, went to jail for the dogs. You know, it wasn't just a civil thing, although he lost a lot of money too. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. I've got other things we're going to talk about today, including I've got, I did kind of a reset on the South Carolina and Clemson basketball rosters. And the reason I did that is because Clemson lost another player to the transfer portal. So when you look at Clemson's roster compared to South Carolina's roster, it's interesting. So we'll get into that. Also, you know what? I'm going to do this before we go to break now. I've got some NFL notes. Jadeveon Clowney has visited the Cleveland Browns. According to a report from Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network, Clowney is an unrestricted free agent and is looking for a new spot. Of course, he played with the Texans, the Seahawks, and the Eagles. This will be his fourth team. He ended up signing a one-year, $12 million deal with the Titans in early September. Oh, yeah, it was with the Titans, but things didn't last all that long. It's knee injury that put him out. I don't know if I think he was with the Eagles. My brain's whacked out. Let's see here. So he may end up signing with the Eagles. We'll see, or not with the Eagles, with the Browns. So that's where he was in the mix there. And Marcus Mariota has agreed to a restructured contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's some interesting stuff there too. It's kind of it takes like a pay cut to stay with the Raiders. He's going to be the backup, the former number 2 overall pick out of Oregon. We'll see where how much he gets to play this season, but he might end up being just the next clipboard type guy. Also joining us at 3:30 today, Will Pelagic from WFNZ up in Charlotte talks a little bit about the NBA trade deadline because so many players were traded. A good portion of the NBA is completely changed right now, especially with the Orlando Magic deciding, hey, we're just going to get rid of our entire team. So Will come on and enlighten us with some of his knowledge here in a moment. And he's just a pretty good guy. I've also got, we talk about Tennessee. Tennessee loses another player. Another player from Tennessee hits the transfer portal. It happens all the time now. I mean, it's really crazy with Tennessee. We went from McDonald's bags to Jeremy Pruitt getting fired to their punter deciding he'd rather punt at Memphis than punt at Tennessee. Now they lose another one. So we'll have that this afternoon. And we will get into the reset of when we come back, we'll do the reset of the South Carolina and Clemson basketball teams and what they've got coming back next season and why people were upset with Frank Martin. I look at the roster for next season, and it's not as I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but I'm saying that it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is in theory. We'll talk about that a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, if they have video of him walking into the massage parlor, that's not exactly a criminal thing. I mean, you got to be able to prove that, whatever. If they got video inside, then that's another thing. But no criminal charges from what I've read. And I'm not trying to call you out or call you a liar or anything over there, Blake. I'm just saying that from what I've read. But then again, let's just be honest. You don't really know until all the lawyers get done lawyering. That's a term my grandpa used to tell me. The lawyers have got to do their lawyering, son. What's up, Bronzy? How you doing? Welcome to the show, friend. I think it's at the point now where there's just too many cases, Blake. You know what I'm saying? Alan, you're crazy, brother. I know, right? I read a little bit about that. We may get into that too. It's the thing with Watson, man. It's just crazy. Well, welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Fire Justin Fuente. No, I don't want Justin Fuente fired because I'm not up there in that mix. But on YouTube, he says, "How serious are the charges against Watson?" It's more of allegations, and it's civil suits from what I've been told so far, and from everything that I've read. So I don't think it's an issue of, hey, Deshaun Watson's going to jail. I don't think that's happening. We'll take calls on that too at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. But I was looking at the rosters for South Carolina and Clemson for basketball, since we're in the heart of basketball season here. Here's the big thing with this. Clemson lost another guy yesterday, Olivier Maxence Prosper, former top 100 rated prospect, averaged 9.7 points, 9.7 minutes, 2.5 points over 22 games this season. He's the third Tiger to exit the program, who could have been on the 2021-22 roster, joining John Newman III and incoming signee Lucas Taylor. So next season, here's how Clemson's going to look with guys that have actually seen some playing time on the floor. You're going to have Alamir Dawes, Chase Hunter. Those two will be juniors. Nick Honor will be a senior. Hunter Tyson will be a senior. Parker Fox played a little bit. He'll be a senior. Alex Hemingway will be a junior, and PJ Hall will be a sophomore. Their recruiting class was ranked 56th overall in the country, 10th in the ACC. They've got two guys listed to join them this season, Joshua Beadle from Cardinal Newman and Ian Schiffelin. Beadle is 6'3", 168. Schiffelin is 6'8", 225. He's from Loganville, Georgia. And they grow those boys big down there. 6'8", 225. That's a big old guy. Then you've got, when you look at that, though, I mean, he's going to have to hit the transfer market. In theory, Coach Brownell is going to have to hit the transfer market. Where will he go and get somebody? Who knows? But with just those guys leaving, you're gonna have to do something. So yeah, that's interesting. But let's flip to the Gamecocks. The big thing with a lot of folks was about, hey, there was the report that Frank Martin was going to be replaced, etc. The Gamecocks recruiting class is ranked 39th in the country. Now, that's not top 10. I get that. But if I told you that they were 39th in the country, I don't think that's that bad. They've got 4 guys listed to come in. Jacoby Wright from Greenville, Devin Carter from New Hampshire, and Taquan Woodley from New Jersey. Also, Carius Williams from Gulfport. So you got some guys here, 166, 167, 64, and 62. You got some guys that are coming in, and then you look at the Gamecock roster. I don't think AJ Lawson is going to be back. You can also take out of the mix Seventh Woods, but the Gamecocks next season, in theory, should have Alonzo Frank back. They should have Wildens Levesque back. Jalen McCrary should be back. Will Justin Minaya return? I don't know. I don't know about that. I also don't know about Jermaine Cousinard, if he's going to be in the list of that he will go, or Keyshawn Bryant. But in theory, you could have a good set of players coming back, and you're not going to have COVID hanging over your head. And I think the Gamecock basketball program right now is on more solid footing than Clemson. And Clemson just went to the NCAA tournament. We'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Folks are talking over in the chat room about Deshaun Watson, so we'll revisit that before we get with Will Pelagic here shortly. Blake says, mark it down. This will not end good for Watson. He should plead out and hope for, first of all, he can't plead out. There is no pleading out, sir. There are no criminal charges. He can pay them off. He can do that. But as far as pleading out, that's not happening. Let's see here. Alan says, one successful male athlete with millions of dollars, there have to be charges, and there are no charges. So exactly. RMF Todd, he's on board with me here. And Blake says, no charges yet. And he talks about up at Penn State that Sandusky was hit with civil first too. They take the money first and then your freedom. You may be right on that. But I think that, and I've said this from the beginning, I think we live in a country where and I have 2 daughters at home. I want them to have the capability that if they get into a situation where something happens to them and they're overpowered by a man, whatever, they're forced to do something that they don't want to do. I think that the thing that I'm teaching them is you go to the police immediately. And I'm wondering why these women did not go to the cops immediately. I mean, you've gotten away from Deshaun Watson. I mean, he physically can't do anything to you in theory, especially the lady that lived in Atlanta that flew to Houston. Go to the police. I mean, maybe you can say that I'm not trying to victim shame these folks here, but go to the police. That's what you should do if something happens. I feel like I'm doing like one of the after school specials, Remember those when we were kids where you'd watch the after school specials and they were completely turned up a lot? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's interesting the way that a lot of this stuff comes out, but I just, in my opinion, I'm not saying they're all liars. I'm not saying that at all. If something happened, they should be the long arm of the law should have Deshaun Watson hanging from it. I believe that. But on the same token, you've got to have the capability to prove that this happened. I think we've gotten away from the whole end of now it's like you're guilty until you're proven innocent. That's not the way it should be. Blake says, Rob, 1 lady a liar, okay, 2 ladies lying, okay, but 16 coming on 20. I never said they were liars, sir. Never said that. I question why they didn't go to the police first. That's all. And if I'm wrong for that, please call up and tell me why. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. And it's frustrating too, because I hate having to talk about legal stuff here on the show. It just, I'm not an attorney. I've got friends that are attorneys. Maybe I'll just bring them on and let them talk about it. That's going to happen eventually. But as of right now, I have to go with what I know. We have accusations from them and a denial of Watson. I mean, which one are you going to believe? 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon, right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. We're going to go to a break in a moment. When we come back, we'll have Will Pelagic on from WFNZ, talk a little bit about the NBA trade deadline. We'll get with that and how the Orlando Magic, if you're a season ticket holder of the Orlando Magic, well, I guess it doesn't matter. They're not really playing in front of fans, but they've completely sold their team. What a way to just say, yep, we're done. We'll talk about that. Some of the other moves that may shape and whittle away how the playoffs are going to look. I know that there are a lot of folks that follow the NBA. There are folks that follow the NBA that come out and watch basketball. Yeah, you do. So we're going to spend a couple minutes on it talking about the trade deadline when we come back. Also, Tennessee had another player that is going to transfer out, reportedly entering the transfer portal. Is there anyone left at Tennessee? It's almost comical now. And it's not that like I'm trying to beat up the Vol program here, but we're at a point now where you're looking at it and it's like everybody's trying to leave Tennessee. Everybody. I mean, no one wants to be there anymore. It's pretty silly. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Will Pelagic on. We'll do the NBA, and then we'll talk about Tennessee and how they're losing players. More of the Rundown in just a moment. You are listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We'll be right back. I didn't know Georgia had another arrest. I think was that from a while back or did that just happen? I haven't seen that in my stuff here. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Out to the phones, I welcome in friend of the program, guy who's a lot smarter than me, especially when it comes to the NBA stuff, from WFNZ. Will Pelagic joins us. Will, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Afternoon, Rob. It's been a busy afternoon, as you might imagine.
Absolutely. Lots of stuff on the NBA trade deadline. And a lot of it comes down to there was kind of some shocking stuff there with Toronto keeping Kyle Lowry. That was kind of one of the big things there, right?
Yeah, it basically came down to really one major contender with the Miami Heat, and there was basically a reluctance on Miami's part to let go of Tyler Hero in any deal to try and get Kyle Lowry. So instead, they turn around to Houston and get Victor Oladipo. The Oladipo experience did not work out in Houston. He was, again, part of that three-team deal with Indiana and the Brooklyn Nets that sent James Harden eastward to the Nets. And when you think about breaking that deal down based on what the Rockets traded away for Harden and what they ultimately got back, they got back Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, Dante Exum, a bunch of late first-round picks and pick swaps. That is not fair value for James Harden. I don't care if he showed up in training camp looking like he was 100 pounds heavier. That, to me, is a significant disaster, I would say, for that franchise in Houston. But Kyle Lowry staying in Toronto is incredibly curious. I think it also just speaks to the fact that people are going to try and possibly take their shot at him in the offseason as a possible sign and trade, just because the market for him right now, I feel like he's more valuable to Toronto than he is to the teams that would be acquiring him, because teams that would acquire him would be using him in more of a complementary role as opposed to a main role like he has in Toronto.
Well, let's move on to Orlando, where it was basically, we've decided we're selling the entire franchise. I mean, I couldn't keep up this morning with all the trades that Orlando was doing.
Yeah, last one out, turn out the lights in Mickey's hometown. Vucevic was the first domino to fall, which I found very interesting because we had been told up until, the early part of this week that Vucevic was not going to be available in any deal whatsoever for any package. The Hornets had checked in on him. A couple of other teams had also looked at him, but the Bulls end up sending a package of players, which includes Wendell Carter Jr. and Otto Porter Jr., as well as a couple of first-round picks, the protection of which I still haven't gotten confirmation on as far as those things go. But that's a big package going back to, or a big piece, rather, going back to the Chicago Bulls, who had a very good day themselves. But then Fournier goes to Boston, and Aaron Gordon goes to Denver. And really right now you have Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, and a bunch of role players who are sitting there in Orlando. They're headed right towards the rebuild, and possibly I would also wonder about the job security of former Charlotte head coach Steve Clifford, because I doubt he's wanting to be a part of anything that involves trying to tear this down to the studs and rebuild from within.
There are some other players that are moving around too. JJ Redick moving on to the Mavs. That's kind of interesting that they're pulling him away from the Pelicans, in my mind anyway.
It is, and it's interesting because the fact that you thought he could have been a big piece for them going toward the playoffs, but when it comes to the way that offense wants to be structured, I mean, it's all about Lonzo and Zion, which again, that's another curious move for New Orleans. A lot of talk that Lonzo might have been on the move somewhere else, but it's a matter of, I think they can't really find anybody else to pay that $20 million in salary. That's kind of a move, though, that Mark Cuban's kind of always coveted. Players like J.J. Redick, those who can shoot the three. I think that's one that kind of made sense for both sides, because not that he had worn out his usefulness in New Orleans, it's just they organized things a little bit differently there with the Pelicans.
Let's talk a second about Lou Williams, of course, from the Clippers, and a guy that to me is just a great guy to have come off the bench and do all kinds of things for you. But they're sending him to the Hawks for Rajon Rondo. That's an interesting trade, which of course gets Rondo back in LA.
Yeah, no, the whole Rondo experiment didn't really work. Rondo was a guy that I think the players liked more, just having him around. But at the end of the day, he was a very expensive assistant coach who didn't have a lot of time on the floor. He wasn't bringing the kind of things that at least Atlanta thought he was going to from a facilitating and scoring standpoint. They wanted more points out of somebody coming out of that position. They also wanted more of an ability to use him on the floor. They were having to load manage a backup point guard, which is not anything you really want to be in right now if you're Atlanta. And the Lou Williams thing is an easy sell for him. He is an Atlanta guy. He had the story back during the Orlando bubble days where he came back to Atlanta, his hometown, and was caught at Magic City getting some wings. So it's a situation where I feel like Rondo wanted to be in L.A., Lou Williams wanted to be back in his hometown in Atlanta. It's the very rare trade that I think works out for both sides. There really isn't a winner or a loser. It's just the Hawks wanted more scoring, and the Clippers wanted more of a playmaker off the bench, something to help them not only for the stretch run but also the playoffs.
What was the trade that was made today that you think is going to help the team have the biggest impact as far as the player on the move?
It's hard to say because I feel like Vucevic is the answer, but my only question is, if you have Vucevic and Zach LaVine, does that get you to the promised land? That's my biggest question mark right now. I know that the Oladipo move to Miami is also one that probably has a big impact just because Miami is in a glob of teams right now that's sitting anywhere between 4th in the East and 10th in the East. That entire aspect right now, those 6 teams that are basically sitting right there in all the playoff spots outside of the top 3 are only separated by 3 games. And they are the team, at least of the ones that made deals on trade deadline day, Miami is the one team that I feel like upgraded the most. While Chicago certainly has made a couple moves to upgrade themselves, I just don't know if they have enough beyond Vucevic and also Zach LaVine in order to really get themselves to a high-end portion of the NBA playoffs. I'm more of a believer in Miami, especially after Oladipo.
And my final thing, last time we were talking about how special Ball has been for Charlotte. And then, of course, he goes down with the wrist injury. Man, just a tough break there for the Hornets.
It's tough, and it really affected what they wanted to do with the trade deadline. They made a minor move today, getting Brad Wanamaker from the Golden State Warriors. That's a move that I feel like gives them another ball handler off the bench. Also, a guy who's out on defense and also plays a lot better perimeter defense than both Devontae Graham and Malik Monk are going to give you. But it's not exactly a move that would be considered earth-shattering. I look for them to be at least a player in the buyout market for a center. They came into the day with a roster spot open. I'm wondering if that's still the case because we still haven't gotten the official return yet from the trade involving Wanamaker. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But the Ball injury certainly is a blow to their present ceiling, but I don't think it keeps them out of the playoff hunt. They ended the day last night in 4th place in the Eastern Conference after going 2-3 on the road. They've got another 6-game roadie against teams that they are basically jockeying for position with in the Eastern Conference. And then once that road trip concludes, the schedule gets a lot more palatable. They still have a lot of scoring on their side. The defense is always going to be a question mark, and the interior is going to be a question mark. But if this team gets to the 4th quarter, Rob, they are one of the best teams in clutch situations. In games where they are within 5 points with less than 5 minutes to play, this team is 14-5 and also has the best net rating of any team in clutch situations. That is one thing that has kind of been their calling card. They're 16-0 in games when they lead after 3 quarters. I feel like if there is a little bit of I guess you could say a flower out there that you could say that the Hornets have in their bag, it is that they know how to play games when they are the tightest. It's just a matter of whether or not they can get to that point.
Will Pelagic from WFNZ joining us, helping me out a little bit with the NBA trade deadline. As always, we appreciate you. Folks can follow you on Twitter. You're at Willie P Style. And hey, man, as always, I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
All right, have a good day. There you go. Will Pelagic making us smarter, ladies and gentlemen, about the NBA trade deadline. There you go. We come back, we'll talk a little bit about a player from Tennessee transferring. Also, J.C. Horn, do you think he's going to be a first-round pick? We'll get into that when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Blake, I don't think they're going to investigate Clemson because of Deshaun Watson with the masseuse. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. That's kind of funny, though. What else do we got here? Let's see here. Alan wants to see the video. Okay, Alan. Urban said the same thing about Hernandez. Yeah, I mean, but I don't think it's going to get that far. I just don't. Yes, Dabo Sweeney did say that. Give me time, RMF Tide. I'm sure I'll say something that is a lot more stupid than that. Dabo Sweeney says some stuff that I'm just like, wow. I mean, just wow. That's why, and I know this sounds silly, and there's tons of media that cover Clemson and everything else, but people talk about Dabo Sweeney going to the NFL. I just, with the things that he says, I don't think that would ever float in the NFL, to be completely honest. Hernandez was actually in a gang too. I don't think Watson was ever in a gang, but then again, at this juncture, I don't even know if I can possibly say that, to be honest with you. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. Quick traffic note, thanks to Bobby from KC telling us it's police activity. Old Dunbar and Charleston Highway, look out for that. Roadways are blocked all over the place. So if you're trying to maneuver around out there, you're going to run into problems. Find a different way around, ladies and gentlemen. Some notes. J.C. Horn, according to some reports, is being projected as a mid-first round pick by many of the NFL mock drafts. And, of course, Wednesday at Gamecock Pro Day, he lit it up like a Christmas tree. He measured in 6 foot tall, 3 foot 3.25 inches tall, 205 pounds, 41.5-inch vertical leap, a broad jump of 11 foot 1 inch, and a 40-yard dash time of 4.39 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, that is fast. That is speed, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah. Senior Bowl Executive Director Jim Nagy on ESPN's NFL Mock Draft 2.0 recently said, Horn out of South Carolina is another bigger, longer body guy, is better than them both when he's comparing them to Surtain and Farley. He says, the reason I like JC so much is, one, when you talk about press man and off man, JC probably does both things better than the other two in terms of having versatility and how you can use him. Two, I just love the confidence, the swag, and the aggressiveness that he plays with. I don't think he's going to be, Stephon Gilmore, but those numbers are outstanding. And he's getting a lot of love from folks right now. Absolute lot of love from a lot of people from that are in the mix for that are in the mix to the talking heads from the NFL draft type thing. So there's that. A couple other things before we get out of here. We've already talked about South Carolina with the quarterback stuff. You can call and check in on us with that, 803-978-1832. I mentioned Jadeveon Clowney is visited Cleveland. I didn't say he was going to sign with Cleveland, as someone sent me in my DMs on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Didn't say he was going to sign with Cleveland. I said he visited Cleveland. So there's that. Also, I mentioned this earlier in the day. Tennessee tight end reportedly enters the transfer portal. Let's see here. According to 247 Sports, Tennessee tight end Sean Brown has entered the transfer portal after 2 seasons with the program. He appeared in just 2 games and has yet to register any stats. He redshirted back in 2019, did not see the field in 2020. Signed with Tennessee out of Coosa High School in Rome, Georgia. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ranked as the number 40 tight end in the nation in the 2019 recruiting cycle. An all-academic type guy. First-year SEC academic honor roll. And played at a 7A school. So, I don't know. But maybe he sees that things are happening at Tennessee, or maybe he just wants to go somewhere where he knows he can get some playing time. Who knows? But Tennessee loses another player. The sun rises, the sun sets, and Tennessee loses another player. Tom asked, how many scholarships did the NCAA penalize Tennessee for? We have not gotten a ruling on that yet. So we'll have to see about that. Some other good things in the chat room today. People are asking about, do you think that a lot of it's about Deshaun Watson and the stuff that's going on with him? You know, we kind of talked about that. RMF Todd says, I don't see any female coming out of Clemson during Watson's time there with the same allegations. So yeah, there's that. Blake says, and I'm reading this comment cold to make sure it's not anything silly. Imagine a girl telling somebody before Clemson played in the national championship game. How mad would Clemson fans be at her? Oof. There is a section of Clemson fans that are like, no way this happened. Absolutely no way would this happen. I think you have to be able to prove that in court. But just to say, oh, no, none of that happened, I'm really not buying all. I'm not going to just sit here and say, okay, that's, Deshaun Watson is awesome and this never happened. Remember, we thought that Les Miles was just a coach that was just kind of weird, eating grass and things like that. Nobody pegged Les Miles as a pervert type coach. And because of things that he's done, he's gotten he's gotten an athletic director and a president from another college at a different college now, cost them their jobs. So you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, ladies and gentlemen. I know that sounds like I'm doing some coach speak here. And that on this program, we try to be honest as we possibly can be. And we try not to fill your head up with foolery, because that's not what we're into here. And we don't know what happened behind those closed doors. So we can't hang Watson out to dry. We can't say these women were just coming after money. We can't do that. We can deal with facts. There was one woman that came and said, hey, if you give me $30,000, I will have indefinite silence. If you pay that money, let's just say, $30,000 to Deshaun Watson is like $150 to the average American person. Okay. It's not really that big of a deal with the money that he's made. All right. But if he gets $30,000 and he gives that to them, isn't that like almost an admission of guilt? I'm not admitting to doing, if I don't think I did anything wrong, I'm not paying you a dime. Good luck with that. So, and here's the other thing. If you do pay them off, let's just say that you were like, you know what? I don't think I did anything wrong, but I don't want this getting out. I don't want this to go and turn into something that's a lot bigger like it is now. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to pay that $30,000. What keeps this woman from saying 6 months from now, hey, guess what? I need another $30,000. Buying indefinite silence is absolutely just can't happen. I'm sure you can get attorneys together and they can write things up or whatever, but the reality is, in the court of public opinion, let's say you pay that $30,000, the attorneys put together some paperwork. You promise you will not mention Deshaun Watson again, ever, whatever. Here's your check. 6 months from now, the woman needs more money. She's going to go to the court of people, the court of public opinion, and say, you know what? I really was going to try to be quiet, but it's just really tore me down. And I feel really, really bad about this. And it's affected my life. If they put that out there, the court of public opinion is going to be like, Deshaun Watson is terrible. So you're going to have that too. The idea of just paying them off doesn't work. I use the Michael Jackson analogy. Michael Jackson paid off a lot of the the cases that came against him. And it comes back down to this. His reputation took absurd amount of hits. Okay. And even though he was never convicted, would you leave your kid with Michael Jackson? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Tom says non-disclosure agreements are no joke. I agree on that too. She breaches the agreement and loses the settlement. If you give me $30,000, I can blow that. Just saying. RMF tied with the comment of the day. Stormy Daniels didn't lose her money. Ooh. All right, tomorrow on the rundown, it's Friday. We're going to talk some. We'll have our picks for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 because those will be going on over the weekend. And we'll talk Gamecock baseball and Clemson baseball and all kinds of good stuff to get you set up for the sports weekend. My name is Rob Sanders. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Be sure to follow me there and follow along with the silliness that comes with that. Special thanks to my guest today, Will Pelagic. You can follow him on Twitter. He's at Willie P Style, breaking down the NBA trade deadline. So as always, we appreciate him joining the show. Podcast of the show will be up at 5:00. You can check it out there. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, the rundown is through. We will see you tomorrow. Nah, it's all right. Blake, that doesn't bother me, dude. Look, you can come. I'm not, there are some people that they don't want to talk about the bad things about the school that they support or whatever. No, man, I'm not like that. Especially if you're wrong, we need to talk about that, but we need to put the absolute truth out there. And that's with anybody at any school, especially when it comes to something like this. I mean, seriously, if he did wrong, he should hang from the long arm of the law is what I said earlier, man. That is just not what you want ever. Absolutely ever. All right. You guys give a like to the video. I'm going to post some of the video from Shane Beamer. I'll have that up on the YouTube channel here shortly. You guys can click on that in just a moment. All right. Hey, thank you guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh, I got all my technical stuff fixed, by the way, at home. So the next Rob and Kale show won't be such a crapper. We'll see you tomorrow.